What's up, guys? Today we're going to install the garage door on our house. It's cold one today. We got a little bit of snow. Thankfully none of it's stuck. We got a Midland door from our local hardware store, and this is an 18-foot door, and we went with a flat front look. We just thought that all those squares that you typically see on a garage door over the course of 18 feet might look a little bit redundant. So this door is going to be completely flat. There's no windows or anything. It's just your basic white door. And the goal is to get this installed here before the sun goes down. My dad's going to come over later to help me out, and right now I've just been laying out all the brackets and getting all the panels ready to go, and I think it should go in pretty easily. Alright, so to start with, what you're going to want to do is find your panel that has this rubber gasket on the bottom of it. That is going to be the bottom panel, and that's what you're going to start with. So I'm going to get a little help lifting this panel over into the entrance. Then I'm going to center it in the rough opening with my tape measure, make sure we have equal amounts hanging over on each side of it. And once we get it centered, we're going to toenail, either use a block or a nail to hold it in place. Luckily it's not very windy today, but that nail is just going to keep it from falling backwards on us. The wall in the rough opening will prevent it from going forward. We just need to make sure we prevent it from falling backwards. And we're just going to kind of layer it like a puzzle. We'll do the first one, we'll put the brackets on the bottom, and then we'll set the second one right on top, flip those brackets up and attach them to that next panel, and it's just that same process, and we keep stacking our way up to the ceiling. And the garage is a mess, I know, but here's that very first panel, completely flat, just kind of a really clean white look, and we'll just keep stacking them from here on. If you look close, they stack together just like a tongue and groove here. This will be the tongue, and then on the next panel the bottom will be the groove. And once we stack that one up, there's little holes right here as you go down, and that's where those hinges are going to go. Ready? Our first panel in here, and I just used some blocking here and toenailed it into the girt on the side of the wall there, and I did that on this side as well as all the way over here. And that's just going to hold that bottom panel in place for us while we're working on it so that it can't fall back towards us. Alright guys, I forgot to do this right away, but you can still do it once that first panel is installed. Just take this cable and loop it on the head of this bolt here. And then there's 4 screws. They come with red heads to designate for these ones. And this bracket just sits down here at the bottom. And there's 4 holes that you use to attach it, and then when you hook up your opener or your springs, that's what this cable attaches to. So I'm going to zip these 4 in quick, and then we'll move on to that second panel. Guys, we got our second panel in place here. One other thing that we forgot to do is peel. There's a protective plastic coating on some of these. This is a steel door, and peel that off before you put them in because it gets trapped underneath in the seam and it's kind of hard to peel off afterwards. But now that we have this in place, since I have these attached already, all I have to do is flip this up and then put a second one in the bottom and then line it up with the 2 holes above it, and then these 2 will be fastened together. So I'm going to run through and do all of these on this section, and then we'll just keep stacking as we go. Oops. When you're using a impact drill like this, you got to be super careful. You're just drilling into a little bit of sheet steel, and then it's all pretty much foam insulation on the inside of these panels. These are self-tapping screws. If you're a little bit weary, you can just use a wrench and tighten them by hand. But I'm going to use the impact. Just don't over tighten it because you can strip them out pretty easily. Alright guys, sorry for the choppy video here. We were kind of running out of daylight the other night, and I didn't have any power hooked up in here, so it's getting a little dark. But essentially, on video, I showed you stacking up panels, and you're going to proceed with that same process all the way up to the top. Make sure you're using your blocking to hold the door from falling back towards you. And once you get all of that set up and relatively centered in your opening, your rough opening, the next step is to install your rails. So we're looking at the vertical track right here. There's 3 brackets that you install, and you just drive a leg screw into, I've got a piece of one of the columns behind here, so that's really solid. And then you just leave all these bolts here, the the track bolts finger tight. Once you get those set up on both sides, then you can go ahead and attach the horizontal flag bracket, which is on the wall here by that red sticker, and that goes all the way up to the top. You'll see those 3 red bolts, and then you can install the horizontal portion of the track. Now, most kits don't come with a rear hanging kit, which is what you see right here. You'll have to buy that separate. I believe I picked this one up for about $30, and it comes with enough track to do both sides of your garage door. I temporarily held the horizontal track in place with some cable, and then I got up on a ladder with a level. You want to make sure this is nice and level, and then I set up this rear mounting kit. Some people use wood, but for the price, I would highly recommend you go out and buy this angle iron kit, and then it's mounted directly to these overhead studs, so it's really solid. Once you get everything level and plumb, the next step is installing the this bar here. And the one mistake that I made is you'll see that reel on the side here where the cable goes up. I'll move over to this side. You want to make sure, the lighting's kind of bad, but on the inside edge of that cable reel, you'll see that red bolt. Make sure those are facing in and not out. I had to pull it all apart and reinstall those because I had them facing out right away, but you just slide them in one side and then you slide in the other side, and then you're pretty much ready to put your springs on and add tension. Larger garage door, it's 18 feet, and I have 2 torsion springs on this one. And I'd never installed one before that had it or needed 2, but you just basically attach the 2 with that center bracket, tighten down those bolts, and then you just tighten one side at a time. And you'll see there's ports here for some winding sticks. Another thing I highly recommend you purchase is some winding sticks. Don't ever use a screwdriver for this. There's extreme tension. I think I had to rotate this 30, I believe it's 33 quarter rotations is what I needed to lift my door easily. And then you just do one side and then the other, tighten them down, and then you're pretty much good to go after that. What's up, guys? It's been a couple days and we've got the garage door completely assembled and in operating condition by hand, and now today we're going to work on installing the electric door opener. So I've already got this reinforcement bracket installed in here. My door has a steel plate up here pre-installed. If yours doesn't, you need to install that before you hook up an electric opener. Without that, you have the potential of the door opener just ripping out the handle or the bracket, because if all you have holding it on there is those sheet metal screws. The steel that these are made of, or sometimes they're even fiberglass doors, this one is steel. It's really thin, and if you got something pulling on it constantly, you're likely to rip it completely out. So I've got that reinforced steel bracket, came from the factory. If you don't have that, you can buy kits that have that included in them. And what I'm going to do to start things out is to install this little hanger bracket. It's the L-shaped piece, and that's going to sit on my door just like this, so that the curved part goes upwards, and there's only one hole, and that's the one that we're going to install into that little bracket I hung up there. And to do that, I just have a little, I don't know if that's going to focus very well or not, but just a little pin with a clamp on it. So I'm going to throw that in real quick and then we'll move on. And that's just going to sit there like that. And then I'm going to install the actual hanger portion next. There's a little bracket that I'm going to put above those torsion springs. You want to center it. This is an 18-foot door, so I'm going to find center, which would put me at 9 feet, make a little mark, and then we're going to go about 2 inches higher than the highest point of the door when we lift the door up. So I'm going to lift the door up a little bit until that panel starts to curve back, and wherever that height is, I'm going to go up 2 inches from there and install that block. That's going to give us plenty of clearance for the door to go up and down. And once I have my mark, I'm going to go ahead and lift the door open just a little bit. Until it gets to its highest point. So right about there is as high as this door will ever reach. And then I'm going to take a level and make a mark at the back that is flush with the door. And once you get that mark, you can go ahead and lower the door again. And then you're going to want to measure 2 inches up from that line. And that's going to give us 2 inches of clearance that we need. Off camera, I'm going to install the bracket that holds up the opener to the wall here. I have to pre-drill. Make sure you're installing this into solid wood. I know there's a big 12-inch header behind here. You do not want to fasten this just to sheetrock. That'd be a disaster. So make sure you got a solid board to fasten this opener to. So this is what that bracket looks like that goes up onto the wall, and there's just 2 holes in it. Make sure you pre-drill so you don't split out the header or whatever kind of wood you have behind it. And then I'm going to fasten it with the supplied leg bolts. Alright, so now we're going to work on attaching the actual opener to the wall itself. Mine came pre-assembled with the belt already on it, and this is the end that's going to be attached to the wall. And you're able to do this by yourself, but it's a little easier with a helping hand. But what I'm going to do is lift this up and then drop the pin in so it's holding this side in the air, and then I'll probably grab a piece of wire or cable to temporarily suspend that side of it, and I'll try and get it leveled. And then I'll mount the motor and get the angle iron mounting kit all assembled so that I can fasten it nice and level and nice and flush. Alright, I got this side in, and I'm going to mount the motor onto the other side and then lift that one up, find some sort of strap to suspend it, and then we'll work on attaching the swing arm, and we'll go on from there. Alright, this probably would have been easier to do before I lifted the one end up, but I was able to get this on here. The one thing you want to watch for is there is a pin here that has one flat side on it, and just make sure you keep that all lined up. Otherwise it won't go on very easily. And then there's just 2 holes here. I'm going to put 2 screws in them, and then we'll lift this up. So behind me you can see I've got it temporarily suspended. I just use a piece of electrical cable. If you have a helping hand, they can hold it up for you while you get it leveled. I'm going to run up there with my level, make sure it's perfectly level, and then I'll retie it, and then I'll work on the kit that it came with that has a bunch of angle iron and mounting hardware, and we'll get everything mounted nice and flush and level. Alright, once you get the motor mounted, which I just finished up with, you're going to attach the second part of this L brace, and mine just has another pin with a cotter key. What you're going to want to do is pull this release here. Normally there's a string attached to this. I have yet to attach mine, and it's going to put it basically in manual mode, and that's going to allow you to slide this back and forth. And the reason you want to do that is because when you're trying to join these 2 together, you want to line up at least 2 of these holes here, and if you leave it locked in place, it's going to be very difficult to do that. So I'm going to put 1 bolt on each end of this bracket here. So I got 1 in the bottom. I'm going to have to run down and grab the second one, but my second one's going to go up top here, and that's going to make this really strong. After we lock this into place, then we can re-engage the electric door portion. Alright guys, sorry for having kind of some choppy video. I've been working on this garage door on and off over the past month. It hasn't been like high on my priority list. Once I was able to seal everything off and just keep the cold air out, I was pretty happy. But we do have everything finished, and we're just going to wait to plug everything in until we're done with drywall, and then we can run all of our cords to the sensors and all that stuff, but I'll give you a quick walkthrough here. I'm not quite sure where I left off in my last videos a couple weeks ago, so I just wanted to do this video to fill in any gaps that there might be. So our opener is from the brand Linear, and I believe it's like a Linear Pro something or another, but they're all pretty much the same. And I have the cover off of it right now just because we ran all of our wire that go to the sensors, and we just kind of left them hanging down here for the time being. Once we hang up sheetrock, we can make everything look a lot nicer and then actually plug everything in. But those cables, you'll just see they kind of run in the trusses back all the way over to there, and then they come over down and then over to the sensor. And of course, you're going to have a little sensor on each side. You want to get these pretty close to the ground. Ours are about 8 inches off the ground. Some people like them a little bit lower than that if they have like smaller animals, maybe cats trying to get in and out. And the 8 to 9 inch mark for us works great. We have dogs, but they're all large, and they're going to be tall enough to set this off if they tried to walk through. And then once the sensor's set off, of course, the garage door just opens back up. But got all the brackets fastened into place and everything's hooked up. One thing, and I believe I did talk about this, but it can't be said enough. When you're putting the tension on your door, and this is a large door, it's an 18-foot wide door, so it is heavy, and there's a ton of tension on these things, like a scary amount of tension. And a lot of people try and cut corners and just use like a screwdriver or something, but make sure you get some winding sticks, they're called for this. I mean, they're probably less than 20 bucks and they work really, really well, and it's just going to be an extra safety precaution that you can use when you're putting the tension on your door. I had to wind them about 30, I think it was 30 quarter turns if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that, but moral of the story is there's enough tension on there where if you were to slip, it's going to do some serious damage. So be extra careful when you're putting the tension on your garage door. So I know the lighting probably isn't the best here with the sun coming in, but one of the tests you want to do after you get your tension all dialed in or close to dialed in on your coil springs up above, lift your door, and it should open relatively easily. You shouldn't have to use a ton of force to get it up. And then just stop it halfway open, and it should be able to remain open by itself. It shouldn't go up by itself or drop down. It should be able to maintain its position all by itself. So if I lift this up a little bit and then I stop, it should stay. It dropped a little bit there. So I could add just a little bit more tension to it to make sure that it doesn't go up or down. And that's just a matter of going back up there, loosening the screw, and adding like a quarter tension to it. But it's not too hard to open, and it does, there it's staying for me. So, I mean, it's close. It's a matter of a quarter to a half a turn of tension. But it's just a simple test you can do once you're done putting that tension up, and it's a good telltale sign if you have the correct amount of tension, if you're not sure how many revolutions you're supposed to do on the coil. So just do a little lift test with it, and then when you drop it down to the floor, you want to make sure that it seats on the floor nicely and that it doesn't bounce back up. Obviously, there's a gasket across the bottom of your garage door, and you want that to be a nice tight seal. Otherwise, you're going to get a little bit of a draft coming in from outside, as well as some rodents and other pests that you don't want inside your home. So make sure it sits nicely across the bottom. I don't know if you can tell in the background. Ours doesn't have any gaps, sits nice and even and flush all the way across the bottom. So I'm happy with this. Like I said, I might add just another quarter turn of tension on it. You notice how it kind of dropped just a little bit midway, and that'll lighten it some as well. But we're ready to essentially hook it up to power. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen until we get our electrical inspection finished up and our sheetrock hung. Then we're going to tie everything in, and then it'll be working. But I'm going to end this video here. The rest of it is just a matter of pretty much plugging it in, which is pretty self-explanatory. So thanks for watching, guys. Look forward to our HVAC video and heating video coming up really soon, and then short after that I'm going to do an electrical video as well. And then further down the pipeline we've got sheetrock flooring. I'm building my own cabinets and everything for the house. So some exciting stuff is coming down the pipeline. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.